Welcome, everyone. I'll just give everybody a few moments to get logged in. I think there's a good number of participants today, so we'll just give everyone a couple of minutes to get connected. Okay, Candice, do you think we should get rolling?
Hi, Cathy. Yes, we can start.
Awesome. So first and foremost, thank you everyone for signing in and joining us today. This webinar is going to guide attendees through the process of establishing a childcare cooperative in Manitoba, utilizing best practices, expert advice, and resources that we will provide in documents customized to Manitoba. Candice has kindly recorded this meeting. So if anyone was unable to join us today, there will be a recorded version available if you also want to share it with colleagues or other interested parties. So again, welcome to the webinar. I am your host today. I am Cathy Edwards, and I am the entrepreneur in residence at Co-operatives First. And I also have my colleague, Candice Minott, here with me as well. She is the Community Engagement Coordinator for Co-operatives First. This webinar aims to share with you some key considerations when planning to start a childcare cooperative, strategies for building community support and involvement, your common hurdles, and solutions that will be relevant in Manitoba. Let's start by ensuring everyone on the webinar is muted while we are all together. We will leave time at the end of the presentation for plenty of questions and discussion. During the webinar, please feel free to use the chat function, and we will and share your name and where you are joining from. Next, I would like to do a land acknowledgement and also an acknowledgement and apology for my cat, who seems to be continually hopping up on my desk here. So if you see a black tail across the camera, don't worry, I am fine. I've just been away from home and he's very annoying. So I would like to return to the land acknowledgement. This event is taking place in a virtual space. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we at Co-operatives First here in Saskatoon are located on Treaty 6 territory, home of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dene, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, and Métis nations. We acknowledge that this land was not ceded, but that the purpose of the treaties was to ensure that land would be shared. If this is your first time joining an event from Co-operatives First, welcome. We are glad to meet you. Our business development organization supports and promotes cooperatives across Western Canada. We do this through the generous support of our funder, Federated Cooperatives Limited. If you are working with a co-op or just curious how a co-op might work, where you are, get in touch with us. Supporting co-ops through startup, incorporation, business planning, and governance is what we do. I would like, so I'll give you a little background about myself. So as I mentioned, I'm the entrepreneur in residence, and I am spearheading this cooperative childcare expansion project. We will get into the nuts and bolts of what that means, but from my professional background, I am both an accountant and a lawyer, but didn't enjoy professional practice in those capacities. I really am a serial entrepreneur. And I am really grateful to have the role as entrepreneur in residence and help guide and incubate many of our startup cooperatives to help set them off on the right foot for success. Candice, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I am Candice Minott. I am the Community Engagement Coordinator here at Co-operatives First. My professional background is in marketing and sales. I've worked with various multinational companies, and I'm so excited to be a part of this Co-operatives First team as we expand childcare co-ops across Western Canada.
Okay, Candice, I'll get you to advance the slides. There we go. So our agenda for today is to discuss childcare and why it's vital to communities, delve into the cooperative model in terms of what a cooperative is and how it can fit the childcare space and the very unique multi-stakeholder approach that we have developed. We want to talk about some of the learnings and lessons from other groups that we have helped through this process, and also provide you with an insight as to how Cooperatives First can help catalyze the development of a childcare cooperative in your community. Okay. So, as many of you know, across Canada, there is a dire lack of childcare available to individuals. So in a report produced in May of 2023 by the the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, they identified that 76% of children in Manitoba live in a childcare desert. And if you're not familiar with the lingo, a childcare desert is where there is one childcare space available for every 3 children in the age range that would qualify for that space. In Canada, the average is 46% of children live in a childcare desert. But what is very interesting, if you actually break that apart on a province by province basis, there is a large concentration of available childcare in Quebec. That province has had funded childcare and subsidized childcare for a great deal of time. So they are certainly a model of how this can be successful in your own community. So realistically, when we focus in on Manitoba, a wonderful colleague and mentor of mine, Dr. Susan Prentice, refers to adding a teaspoon into the ocean. So where do we need childcare? Really, we can create it anywhere, and there's a dire need. Next slide. Okay. So the catalyst behind this whole project was based on some work we did with the community of Maple Creek in Saskatchewan. So even though it's a Saskatchewan community, it really is a story, I think, that really appeals to communities anywhere in Western Canada. It was not a terribly dense populated area. They had a community population of just over 2,000 people. And what was really interesting about the work we did in Maple Creek is the economic development officer actually was the key proponent behind the childcare development, which is not normally what you would see. But in that particular community, there were a number of institutional facilities, as well as small operated businesses that were having a very difficult time staffing their roles and positions because of a lack of childcare within the community. So as a group, the group got together and included representatives from the municipality, the rural municipality, the Nikanit Nation, as well as interested community members. Together, they formed a very unique cooperative and we have helped guide them through the process. They have received space funding for 42 childcare spaces and are already looking to expand, even though they haven't broken ground. So clearly the community need and support was there, but what made this case study so unique were the players that got involved to bring this type of facility, make it a reality in their community. So we'll delve into that a little bit more when we talk about the cooperative model. But from a high-level economic perspective, we have really been targeting our conversation to a lot of municipalities and particularly economic development officers. What's really interesting is that a lot of rural communities are trying to attract young families and talent. And last year, when we attended and had conversations in Alberta at their economic development conference, which is referred to as EDX, it was very interesting that they had a lot of big presentations about attracting talent in this new era of working from home or work from anywhere. And it was really important to note that working from home does not mean that childcare is not required. So if you really are interested in attracting young families and talent to live that amazing rural lifestyle, childcare is a very important component of that puzzle. It also ensures that your school system will flourish. So, as we get into this discussion, the timeline really for this mandate is until 2026. So if communities, they need to be motivated to ensure that they create these spaces while this government capital funding is available. Because if community A goes out and develops a childcare facility and community B does not, when young families are looking to relocate, they're going to choose a community with childcare and then grow roots in the community and ultimately feed that school system. And as I mentioned, there is a timeline on this initiative. So we'll be looking at sort of the bilateral agreement between the federal and provincial government. But really the timeline to this rollout is to have a significant number of childcare spaces created by 2026. What is really also interesting, and I think gets overlooked often, is the fact that childcare has an awesome economic multiplier effect. So for every $1 spent on childcare, studies have shown that a range between $1.38 all the way up to $3.50 are generated in the community. I also note that many of these studies were generated before $10 a day childcare was available. So, rational argument would be that with greater disposable income and lower childcare fees, that multiplier effect will be greater for the communities that bring this facility to life. It is also plays a huge role in ensuring maternal employment. So there's always dialogue in every community about the lack or labor shortage. And so if we are not creating a pathway for 50% of the labor market to access work, we have put ourselves in an even more difficult position. And notwithstanding all of the positive economic effects, it has been shown that licensed, well-programmed childcare has very positive outcomes for children. Okay, next slide, Candice. So why childcare and why now? So as we noted, childcare was identified as a national problem or lack of childcare. And so the federal government has entered into bilateral agreements with each of the provinces. And the emphasis is on creating not-for-profit childcare and early learning centers. Our multi-stakeholder cooperative approach will really foster community development. So what I really want to point out as a distinction at this juncture is that a cooperative in the childcare space is not a new concept, but often what you'll see is a strictly parent-run cooperative. And based on that model, there is a lot of turnover as parents sort of age out of the system and their children no longer need care. So what is really distinct about the model that we're proposing is that it includes players from the municipal levels, neighboring nations, and possibly institutional involvement, which gives the cooperative stability and long-term ties to the community that a purely parent-run cooperative does not have. So moving specifically to Manitoba, the bilateral agreement was signed on August 6th of 2021, and it allocated $1.2 billion over 5 years to catalyze the development of childcare and reduce childcare costs to $10 a day for families. So what this boils down to is the creation of 23,000 new spaces by 2026. And that is an absolutely astronomical mandate. So what we've seen with our experience in this space is that the provincial governments have their program to respond to communities or groups who want to create childcare. But where we see our ability to help communities is helping you get investment ready and filling that gap in the system. So what that means is to be able to apply for government funding, there is a significant amount of work, budgeting, resources that go into the planning and development of an initiative like this. So we are sort of your professional partners in helping you move towards realization of a childcare facility. So specifically in Manitoba, we have received a grant from Prairies Can to help focus our professional skill set on developing cooperative childcare centers. So we are working in Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and Alberta. Across those three provinces, Manitoba certainly has the most accessible capital development program. And what I mean by accessible is that they give the most significant funding to groups who qualify. So you need to be a not-for-profit organization. And of course, there are a number of criteria which you will need to meet, but if successful, you will have access to up to 60% of your capital costs funded by the provincial program. What is really unique about this is that if you are targeting space development for children under the age of school attendance, so 5 and under, there is no cap or maximum allocated to those spaces. If your space creation focuses on children 5 and up, there is a cap of $1.2 million. There is also a tax credit program that can be claimed. And then once you are up and operational, there are a number of ongoing operating and staffing grants to basically bridge that gap and provide $10 a day care. So what the provincial governments are doing is essentially shifting where the funding comes from on an operational basis. The emphasis used to be on collection of parent fees, but now parent fees will be reduced to $10 a day, and provincial governments are providing that operational funding to fill that gap. So I'd love to pass it off to my colleague now, Candice, who's going to talk us through what cooperatives are all about.
Thanks so much, Cathy. So we're not going to take it for granted, but many of you may ask, what exactly is a cooperative? So a cooperative is a group of people who come together to form a legally recognized organization to solve, a communal problem or address a community need. It's governed democratically by the principle of one member, one vote, which ensures equality. In a community services cooperative, members are both the owners and the decision makers, actively participating in annual general meetings, and it is an example which is excellent for nonprofit entities. Now, why would we be promoting this form of business? Why a cooperative? Cooperatives stand out because they are a collective of people joining forces to create tangible solutions. This model is very versatile and adaptable, and is ideal for individuals, institutions, corporations, and different types of businesses. Transparency is key here, and members are owners who share information and provide access. So the primary goal of the cooperative is to serve the community over individual profits. Now, why not-for-profit? And these are some of the questions we've been getting from our various engagement sessions. So, not-for-profits serve the public interest instead of pursuing profits. They can include cooperatives, clubs, societies, and various forms of organizations who address social objectives. They're not confined to operating at cost. They can generate a profit. However, any accumulated surpluses have to be within the Canada Revenue Agency guidelines. Now, although charities and nonprofit organizations both function on a not-profit basis, their legal definitions and operations differ. Canadian registered charities must channel their resources exclusively into charitable activities. So there's quite a distinction there. Now, there are some learnings and some lessons that we'd like to share with you. So our experience with the childcare cooperative model has been overwhelmingly positive. These entities are typically structured as community service or not-for-profit cooperatives, and they offer parents and community members the chance to be more than just participants. They can be members and they can be owners, and this is key. Now, cooperatives are governed by a one-member, one-vote system. The members elect a board and they hire a program director. And it is the board's responsibility to run and set up the childcare cooperative with support from the membership. This model is very flexible and it has a unique ability to engage multiple stakeholders. And we have some examples from cooperatives that we have set up here in Saskatchewan, namely Maple Creek, Bean Sprouts, and Blooming Petal Childcare Cooperative. We've learned that the process does take some time, it takes effort. There are many regulations and standards that you'll have to meet, but support is there, and we're here to support you through this process as well. So, in order to create your own space, what do you need to get started? To work with us, we recommend that you have a steering committee, which is going to be a group of persons who could be from the multi-stakeholder model, institutional partners, parents, different persons who can see the project through from start to finish. And of course, community support is essential, as you can't do any work without having your community support. And I'm going to hand it back to Cathy to tell you a little bit about how we can help.
Thanks, Candice. So going back to looking at sort of the big provincial rollouts of funding, what's been really interesting is that we saw this gap. And this was really how we, why we approached Prairies Can about additional funding to provide assistance within the prairie provinces. So what we were noting was, you know, the provincial governments were doing a great job of setting up the programs, but it was sort of, I use the analogy of saying, you know, we're going to provide access to schools. You just need to go out and organize them and build them. This is sort of a similar situation. So we recognize that people who are in the childcare space know about the childcare space, but that doesn't mean that they have access to business planning, financial tools and supports, and all the things that you really need to comprehensively be well educated and ready for operations. And so that's the void that Co-operatives First is looking to provide, is fill that void. So we can do a number of things. So from a fundamental basis, we can help incorporate your cooperative, including providing articles of incorporation and your bylaws. We can then shift you into what we look at as business planning. So we are creating a set of resources that are tailored to Manitoba that will essentially give you the foundations for a business plan by working through a workbook style program, as well as financial modeling, so that you have a comprehensive view of what it will look like to operate a childcare center, taking into account all of the grants and subsidies that are currently available. So we provide all of this funding at no cost to our participants. We do ask you to have an engaged, active steering committee. Much as we can provide professional support, it is a long process, and it is a process that requires commitment. And I really want to note here that commitment doesn't need to be necessarily your municipality. That is a beautiful recipe where we're balancing sort of that political or government support with community engagement. But in many communities or larger centers such as Winnipeg, having a municipal player on your childcare facility maybe isn't realistic. And that's why institutional partners can also play a significant role, or even large businesses that see the need for childcare in their community. They can be a participant in the not-for-profit cooperative model without wholly being responsible for the development of the center. So it's a really flexible approach. So again, our services are provided at no cost to the groups we support because of our great funder, Federated Co-op, seeing the need to catalyze and incubate the cooperative model across Western Canada. So again, the incorporation supports that we provide will include registration of your cooperative. What we do note is that we have every province charges a fee for registration. So the only fees that would be charged through cooperatives first are only cost recovery for your actual registration fee. We provide financial workbooks, governance support, and also facility planning and operational guidance. So what we are also currently working on is we've engaged a code engineer to provide us with a detailed format for each particular province for the design of childcare facilities. And we want to create an actual set of childcare facility plans that can be utilized by various numbers of groups. So we're hoping to build on the economies of scale of working together collectively, which is again, part of our cooperative approach to things. So we'd really love to get in touch with each and every one of you who is interested in bringing childcare to your communities. We're here to support, and we really, really encourage you to reach out to community members and form a steering committee. But don't hesitate to reach out to us in the early stages. We are really keen to develop spaces in Manitoba. We have some great conversations going on already. And I want to really acknowledge that we've had some awesome early partnerships develop in Manitoba with the Assiniboine Credit Union and also with the Jubilee Foundation. So you guys have some awesome fundamental players who are interested in the space and will provide additional help. And we'd love to set you on the pathway to success. So our emails are up there as well as our website. We will have a brand new Manitoba landing page with the tools and resources on there, up and operational very, very shortly. And I'd love to turn it over to Candice, and we will moderate any questions that folks have.
Thank you so much, Cathy. So at this time, we'll take any questions. You can either type in the chat or you can raise your hand and I'll indicate the next person in line. So if you have any questions, feel free, type it in the chat or just raise your hand. I'll call your name and we'll answer any questions you may have. Okay, I'll throw one out to Cathy. I see Joel has his mic open. And And I do see Chantel with a question. Joel, would you like to ask your question? And then I will ask Chantel to share as well.
Sure. Thank you. Hey, I just have a question. When you got to the slide of the funding and funding opportunities, and it's, yes, here in Manitoba, we do have great programs in place, or at least I'd like to think that we do. You did mention it has to be registered as a non-for-profit. Same thing with a cooperative model also, but does that mean that whether it's home-based daycare or yeah, home daycares or otherwise, if it's a for-profit or registered as a sole proprietor or incorporated for-profit, that they wouldn't qualify for any programming?
So I think the distinction that there is programming versus funding. So the big capital allocation for funding is for not-for-profit childcare centers. So there is a distinction. So a home-based private childcare space, even though it may be licensed, there is a cap on the maximum number of children that can attend in that space. So that's really more of the residential environment. That is not part of this program. This program is for the development of larger centers that can accommodate, 30 plus children.
Yeah, because the other subsidies that, whether the subsidies per depending on age groups and all that still applies regardless what you're okay, but you're talking about that programming side of things. So that okay.
Yeah, exactly. In terms of the capital funding that's available for new startups, yeah, to build all those new spaces, correct.
And I know for non-profit, but for the cooperative model, again, minimum I know for the nonprofit, when you register a nonprofit, you need at least three I don't want to call them owners, but
yes,
3 title holders. Same thing for cooperatives.
Exactly. And ideally, I mean, you're going to need a steering committee of at least 3 people. So they often end up being your board. But yes, 3 is the minimum number in Manitoba.
And sorry, just one more and I'll let the others, but when
Yes, no
when you
worries.
determine and you hire a coordinator or you hire the levels 3s, 2s, 1, again, the cooperative still has to respect provincial salary guidelines, or is it to the cooperative members to say, hey, we're going to pay our employees 200,000 a year, and if it's approved, it's approved?
No, you would still operate under the provincial guidelines because you would really be operating as a licensed childcare center. And as a licensee, you adhere to those same rules. So really the distinction between a not-for-profit corporation and a not-for-profit cooperative are largely interchangeable. What is unique about the cooperative is the one member, one vote. So it's not the investment that drives democracy or weights the vote. It's the fact that all members are equal, which creates a really lovely platform for community engagement. So you can also have your bylaws tailored to, for example, if you have institutional partners. So for example, we have done a childcare center here in Saskatoon, and it's a charitable organization that serves the BIPOC community and provides education and resources to new Canadians. They will always have a seat on the board of that cooperative, and that is provided for in their bylaws. So there's a lot of things that you can do to ensure that some of your long-term stakeholders always have representation.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thanks for those questions, Joel. So we have a few questions from the chat. So first I will share with you Chantel, then Melissa, Nigel would like to jump in, and Shelley, in that order. So Chantel's question is, can a cooperative be used for daycares that are already operational but need more spaces?
So that is a great question. So it would require you to change or create a new legal entity. So depending on whether or not there are advantages to creating that. If it's one center that's already operational, and it's simply an expansion of, for example, a not-for-profit corporation that's operating it, there really wouldn't be an advantage. However, if you were going to be starting in a new location and wanted a new organizational structure, then we could certainly help you with that.
Thanks, Cathy. So Melissa is asking, are these services available for those interested in establishing a childcare center and or a childcare home?
So a child care home would be, of course, one of the smaller venues that would be really run out of somebody's home and more of a private style enterprise. Our focus for this project is the multi-stakeholder larger childcare facilities. So if you are interested in the not-for-profit model and operating a center that would accommodate a more significant number of children, then we would really be in a position to help. But in terms of the smaller family licensed homes, that is sort of the outside of the scope of our project.
Thanks, Cathy. And I'm going to invite Nigel from Assiniboine Credit Union to share his comment at this time. Okay, Nigel, we're not hearing you. Okay, maybe it's the headset. All right, so I'm gonna come right back to you, Nigel. I'm just gonna take this question from Shelley. Shelley is asking, how may you be able to help a group that has access to space to rent, but needs funds for operations and supplies only? And can this be used for a group providing before and after school care only?
Yes, so that's the short answer to your question. We could certainly help you. There are sort of a wide variety of grants available from the Manitoba provincial government. There is a cap on the maximum amount that can be pursued for grants. If you're only going to be providing care to children that are school aged. So the funding is less significant in that respect. But certainly, yes, there are also startup funds available that would help you purchase your supplies and things of that nature. So certainly get in touch with us and we can see what we can do to support.
Thanks, Cathy. And I think we have Nigel. Nigel, I think I'm hearing you now. You can go ahead with your comment or question.
Okay, my apologies. Is it clear? Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you both for the opportunity to participate in this. Myself and my colleague here at the Assiniboine Credit Union had the opportunity to meet both Candice and Cathy a few weeks ago to learn about this development. And of course, as a financial cooperative, we certainly believe very much in the cooperative model, the governance and ownership model. So very excited to see Cooperatives First sort of taking this initiative and trying to deal with a very growing need here in our community across the province, which is access to affordable, safe, and decent childcare. So we as a financial cooperative certainly very much would like to play a role wherever we can. So just wanted to endorse and sort of echo sort of the importance of this effort here in Manitoba. We've been fortunate at ACU over the years to finance a lot of nonprofit organizations, but also those within the childcare space. Some are co-ops and others are just purely nonprofit. Some are private. So we have a very good understanding of some of the challenges and barriers. But I would also just end by saying, we do already have a couple of childcare cooperatives here already. So for those of you on the line who are still learning and trying to understand what this whole co-op vehicle is, Panda Bear Daycare, as well as River Avenue Daycare, there are two co-op daycares. And you might want to reach out to them to understand some of their journey and why this particular model is really a good alternative to think about for this sector. So thanks again, Candice and Cathy, just for the opportunity for us to participate, to learn, and to hopefully be available if there's anything we can do as a financial cooperative to support this effort.
Awesome. Thanks, Nigel.
Okay, well, okay, so Shelley has another question. So Shelley is asking, how long has it been taking to obtain childcare license for new co-ops, assuming building exists and doesn't need significant adjustments?
That is a great question, Shelley. So here in Saskatchewan, that has been sort of our primary experience. We are just rolling out this program in Manitoba, so we will certainly be able to provide more precise input or feedback on Manitoba once we're a little further down the pathway. But what we can say is that using our resources and working within the model that we've developed, we have been able to significantly reduce that startup period time for our program participants. So in the past, the feedback we had from our provincial government and some of our operators here in Saskatchewan is that when you would put your application in, it would take anywhere from a year to 18 months to complete all of the material, submit it, and then be adjudicated. And we have had a turnaround in less than 6 months in a number of circumstances. And most recently had a group who completed all of the tasks within 6 weeks in order to meet a cutoff deadline from the provincial government to apply for funding. So what we've really worked hard on doing is streamlining and providing assistance in all of the pain point areas that can be difficult for a not-for-profit group, the community group coming together, things that they may not know how to do or have the access to. So that's, I think, a big advantage of the program that we're providing. I just wanted to note, Candice, that there was also a question that we had missed from Melissa.
Yes, thank you, Cathy. I was just about to ask you that question. So Melissa is asking, what advice would you give to a community that wants to find other interested group members to begin this process?
So that is also a great question, and we've had that a number of times, because even though you may have a great steering committee of 3 people, you really want a wider cross-section and understanding of your community needs and engagement before embarking on this task. And one really successful approach would be to hold a town hall community style meeting. So if you're in a smaller community, you can try and engage your municipality or rural municipality. But if you're in a larger community, it would be really looking at who would be sort of your target area for attendance at the childcare, but also the employers in the area who may be having difficulty retaining or hiring staff because of a lack of suitable childcare. So really look in your geographic region about who your key players are and try and build up support for a community meeting to raise awareness and excitement and find out who some of your partners may be.
Thanks for that question, Cathy. So in terms of questions, I see Joel has opened his speaker once more. Go ahead, Joel.
Yeah, like I'll challenge something before going to town hall and all this and getting community involvement. Do you do that prior to lining up, well, ideally level 3 staffing before, or do you build it and they will come? Because you have to understand, the provincial government here in Manitoba gave 9, I think, up there to 16, of those Lego ready to build daycares, whatever. My municipality got 2, which is awesome, but I'm like, where the heck is the staff? And they just lured off. Now you have managers running an existing daycare plus these new ones, like, hello, burnout anytime now. Yes. And they're not getting double pay either. So I'm like, it's a very risky way to go about business. But again, I maybe I'm not I'm just throwing that out there rather than challenging.
No, for sure. And that's excellent feedback. And that was one of sort of the issues that we identified with that whole the rollout of sort of the RTM project was, it was really exciting to see the government take such amazing initiative to provide that level of capital contribution. But it was noted that it didn't bridge the gap in terms of how do we operate and staff these facilities accordingly. So what we propose is that you need to know that the community's on board and that there's some support and that there's some long-term institutional or municipal players at the table. But to your point, one of our very early steps, often before physical space is being identified, we always say you need to start finding your directors, your level 3 ECEs. We know that there is a great shortage, and that is something that we advocate for very early in the process, because often you're absolutely correct. We'll get a group that says we've got a space and we're ready to go and we want to apply for funding, but they haven't thought about that labor component. So through our process, we do identify that as a very sticky pain point early on, and work with groups. So we are just starting to develop our relationship with the provincial government in Manitoba, but here in Saskatchewan, an interesting approach that they've taken is to provide temporary exemptions. So if you have a teacher, for example, who wants to move into the childcare space as a director, they can be working towards getting the additional certifications they need to sort of fill in the holes between a teaching certificate and an ECE level 3, but they will be allowed to be the director for a temporary period of time while they finish those credentials. So I am hopeful that those same sorts of concessions or concept exist in Manitoba, and we will certainly be uncovering those stones shortly.
Thanks, Cathy, and thanks, Joel, for that. Very good question. I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat. If you have any burning questions, feel free to raise your hand, open your mic. We are here to respond to those queries. And if you don't feel like speaking, we'll give you a last opportunity to just pop it in the chat so that we can address any questions you have. Just want to bring your attention to our contact details. You can email Cathy and myself at cooperativesfirst.com. You can also check out our website at www.cooperativesfirst.com. We're on Instagram and also we're on LinkedIn. You can check out our social media pages as well. Okay, so Cathy, do you have any final comments that you'd like to share with this group?
No, other than we're really excited to get started in Manitoba, and we certainly hope that you will reach out to us. We know that there's a lot of work to be done. Your provincial government has done a great job of establishing programs and access to significant capital to get things underway. So we really encourage you to reach out to us and see what we can do to assist.
Thanks, Cathy. And Melissa is saying that this would be a wonderful addition to, if not attending already, any career fairs hosted in Manitoba. So thanks for that, Melissa. We will be on the lookout. Feel free to share any contacts you have with us. If you think that we could add value to your meetings, reach out to us as well. We're here to clarify any concerns you may have. Okay. So without further ado, we just want to give a big thanks on behalf of Cooperatives First for your time today. We hope that the information provided has been useful, and feel free to reach out to us at any point. I want to thank my colleague and co-host Cathy for the excellent presentation, And if you have any further queries, concerns, you can check us out on our website. You can email us directly. Cathy, the final word is yours.
I think you summed it up beautifully. Thank you, Candice, for co-hosting with me. Thank you to Nigel for hopping on and sharing his perspective. It is awesome to see such support from a financial cooperative in Manitoba. So we really look forward to hearing from all of you and helping you start your journey towards creating more childcare spaces in your communities.
Okay, so have a wonderful rest of day, everyone, and thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.